The notebook that changed everything. Some discoveries change you forever. Mine came on a rainy November evening, hidden in a dusty cardboard box in my grandmother's attic, a leather-bound notebook I was never supposed to find. My name is Michael, and this is the story of how a forgotten notebook revealed a family secret that had been buried for over 50 years. The discovery. It had been 3 months since we lost my grandmother, Eleanor. At 87, she had lived a full life, or so I thought. My mother asked me to help clean out her old house in Charleston, South Carolina, the house where 3 generations of our family had lived, loved, and died. The attic was a tomb of memories. Old furniture covered in white sheets, boxes of photographs, my grandfather's Navy uniforms, my aunt's childhood toys. Everything smelled of aged wood and magnolia. I was about to give up for the day when I noticed a small wooden chest tucked behind an old wardrobe. The chest was locked, but the wood had rotted around the hinges. One firm pull, and it opened with a groan that seemed to echo through the empty house. Inside, wrapped in faded silk, was a notebook. The leather cover was worn smooth by decades of handling. No title, no name. Just a small date embossed in the corner, 1967. My grandmother would have been 24 years old. I opened it, and her handwriting, that distinctive, flowing script I'd seen on birthday cards and shopping lists, stared back at me. But these weren't recipes or reminders. These were secrets. If anyone finds this, the first page read, "Please burn it." But if you're reading this, you're probably family. And maybe it's time someone knew the truth. My hands trembled as I turned the page. The young woman. April 15, 1967. I met him today. His name is James, and he has the kindest eyes I've ever seen. We spoke for only 5 minutes at the textile mill, but I felt like I'd known him my entire life. This is dangerous. I'm already engaged to Robert. The wedding is in 6 months. I had to stop reading. James. I'd never heard that name before. My grandfather's name was Robert, that much I knew. But who was James? May 3, 1967. James waited for me after work today. We walked through the historic district, and he bought me sweet tea at that little cafe on King Street. We talked about everything, books, dreams, the world beyond Charleston. With Robert, I feel safe. With James, I feel alive. God help me, what am I doing? June 20, 1967. I told James about Robert. I expected him to leave, to be angry. Instead, he held my hand and said, "Then let's make these last months count. I'd rather have a summer with you than a lifetime with anyone else." I cried all the way home on the streetcar. The notebook fell from my hands. My grandmother, my kind, proper, Southern Belle grandmother, had been in love with another man. This couldn't be real. But it was. Every page confirmed it. The summer of 1967. The entries from that summer painted a picture I could barely recognize. My grandmother and James met in secret, at Waterfront Park by the Cooper River, in the back rooms of old bookshops, at Folly Beach after dark. They talked about running away together, starting a new life in California or even New York. August 8, 1967. James asked me to leave with him. He has enough money saved. We could take the Greyhound to California, start fresh in San Francisco. I could be free. But what about my family? What about the shame I'd bring to Mama, to Daddy? What about Robert, who has done nothing wrong except love me? What about everything I've been raised to be? August 15, 1967. I told James no. I watched his heart break, and mine broke with it. He didn't cry, didn't beg. He just nodded, kissed my forehead, and walked away. I stood there on the Battery until he disappeared into the crowd. The wedding is in 2 weeks. August 29, 1967. I married Robert today at St. Michael's Church. Everyone said I was the most beautiful bride they'd ever seen. I smiled for the photographs. I danced to At Last at the reception. I said my vows in a church filled with white roses and hope. And through it all, I searched the crowd for James's face, knowing I'd never see it again. I had to put the notebook down. My chest felt tight. This was my grandmother, the woman who made me sweet tea and biscuits every Sunday, who taught me to fish off the pier, who never missed a single birthday. And she had carried this pain her entire life. The years after. The notebook continued through the decades, but the tone changed. The passionate young woman was slowly replaced by a devoted wife, then a mother, then a grandmother. November 1968. Sarah was born today. 7 pounds, 2 ounces, blonde hair, Robert's blue eyes. When I held her, something shifted in my heart. Maybe this is what I was meant for. Maybe James was just a beautiful dream, and this screaming, perfect little creature, is my reality. March 1972. Robert lost his job at the shipyard today. He came home silent, defeated. I held him while he cried. In 12 years of marriage, I've never seen him cry. 30 men laid off, just like that. I realized something tonight: love isn't always fire and passion. Sometimes it's holding someone in the dark and promising them tomorrow will be better. December 1976. The doctors at MUSC confirmed it today. Sarah has leukemia. Stage 3. She's only 8 years old. I've been praying in every church in Charleston. I've been bargaining with God: take me instead, take my memories of James, take everything I have, just leave my daughter. Please. My Aunt Sarah. I'd been told she died in a car accident. That was a lie, another family secret. April 1977. Sarah died this morning at 6:47 a.m. Robert and I were holding her hands. She said, "Don't be sad, Mama. I'll be with the angels." Then she closed her eyes and never opened them again. I don't know how to survive this. I don't know how to breathe. The magnolias are blooming outside her window, and I hate them for being beautiful when everything inside me is dead. Tears blurred my vision. I couldn't read anymore, but I couldn't stop either. The unexpected return. September 1983. I saw James today. After 16 years. He was at the farmer's market downtown with his family, a wife, 2 children. Our eyes met across the vegetable stands. For a moment, the world stopped. Then his daughter tugged his sleeve, and the spell broke. He nodded at me, a small sad smile on his face, and kept walking. I stood there holding peaches, crying, while vendors shouted prices around me. October 1983. James came to the house today while Robert was at the Veterans Hall. We drank sweet tea on the porch, like 2 old friends. He told me about his life. He'd moved to Atlanta, became a civil engineer, met his wife 3 years after our summer. He seemed happy. I told him about Sarah, about the other children, about building a life from broken pieces. Before he left, he said, "I've never regretted loving you. It taught me what my heart was capable of." I said, "I've never regretted choosing duty. It taught me who I am." October 1983, continued. That was the last time I saw James. He moved to Oregon the following month for a job with Boeing. But that conversation gave me something I didn't know I needed: closure. Or maybe not closure, acceptance. Acceptance that we can love more than one person, in different ways, in different seasons of life. The final pages. The last entries were from 2010, written in increasingly shaky handwriting. March 2010. Robert died today. We were married for 43 years. He was a good man, a better man than I deserved. In his final days, he told me he always knew. About James, about that summer, about the part of my heart he could never touch. He said, "I loved you anyway, Eleanor." Isn't that enough? God help me, it was more than enough. It was everything. August 2010. My grandson visited today. Michael. He's 25 now, strong and kind, with his grandfather's determination and his great-aunt's wild heart. I watched him, and I wondered, what secrets will he carry? What impossible choices will life force upon him? October 2010. I'm dying. The doctors use softer words, but I know. I've been thinking about this notebook, about whether to destroy it or leave it behind. I've decided to leave it. Not because I want to be discovered, but because I want someone to know, life is not simple. Love is not simple. We are not heroes or villains, we're just people, trying our best with impossible situations. November 2010. If you're reading this, dear finder, know this: I loved two men in my life. James was my summer, bright, burning, impossible to hold. Robert was my lifetime, steady, patient, real. I don't regret either. I don't regret choosing duty over passion, because that choice gave me children, grandchildren, a life of meaning. But I also don't regret that summer, because it proved I was capable of feeling deeply, of being more than just a daughter, a wife, a mother. For 3 months, I was simply Eleanor, young, reckless, alive. And maybe that's the secret of life: we contain multitudes. We're not just one story, one choice, one love. We're all of it, all at once, messy and contradictory and beautifully human. Remember me kindly, whoever you are. That was the last entry. She died 2 weeks later. The living. I closed the notebook and sat in the dark attic for hours. Rain drummed against the roof. Somewhere in the city below, church bells rang the hour. People were living their lives, falling in love, making choices, carrying secrets. I thought about telling my mother, my uncles, the rest of the family. But what would it achieve? Would it honor my grandmother's memory, or simply complicate it? In the end, I decided to keep the secret, but not to hide it. I would write it down, tell it as a story, change the names to protect the living, but preserve the truth for anyone who needs to hear it. Because my grandmother was right, we contain multitudes. We're not simple creatures with simple stories. We're complex, contradictory, capable of great love and great sacrifice, often in the same breath. I put the notebook back in the chest, back in the attic, where it would wait for the next person brave enough or curious enough to find it. Maybe in another 50 years, one of my children or grandchildren would discover it and learn that their ancestors were not perfect, they were human. And sometimes, that's the most important lesson of all. As I left the house that night, I looked back at the dark windows. Somewhere in those rooms, 3 generations had loved, fought, wept, and dreamed. The walls held their secrets, and now I held one too. I thought about James, whoever he was, wherever his bones now rest. Maybe in Oregon, maybe in some veteran cemetery, maybe scattered across the Pacific. I thought about my grandfather, who loved a woman even though he knew part of her belonged to someone else. I thought about my grandmother, who chose duty over desire and built a life from that choice. And I thought about myself, 25 years old, standing at the beginning of my own story, with no idea what impossible choices await me. But now I know, whatever comes, I'll face it. I'll make mistakes. I'll love imperfectly. I'll carry secrets. And someday, someone will find my notebook and learn that I too was human. That's the legacy. Not perfection, but truth. Not simplicity, but complexity. Not one story, but many, all woven together into the messy, beautiful tapestry of a life. I walked into the rain, the notebook's words still echoing in my mind: remember me kindly, whoever you are. I will, grandmother. I will. The Charleston night wrapped around me like a familiar blanket. Somewhere in the distance, a ship's horn sounded from the harbor. Life went on, as it always does, carrying secrets in its wake. The end.